The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon. This is Jerry Davis here, library consultant for TLC. I'm almost tempted to say good afternoon, all of you cats and kittens, but probably shouldn't do that. So give me a second here. I've got someone calling me accidentally. So this afternoon, we're going to look at modern acquisitions workflows. With that, what we're going to do is not do a full demo of acquisitions, but what we're going to do is look at some modern workflows that I'm amazed more libraries aren't using. So with that, let's dive in. So I'm going to start this a slightly unusual way in saying, what do libraries say about acquisition systems? I put rival acquisition systems there just so you know that this isn't actually what our own customers say about our system. But these are things that people say about their acquisition systems. And this really is why so many of you are interested in looking at this today. The first thing they say is it's lots of duplicate effort. It's more trouble than it's worth. We use spreadsheets instead. And the one that really hits it, we just use our online book vendors system. Acquisitions has become one of those modules people love to hate. It can be a rather complex module because it has to cope with so many diverse workflows. It tends to be a bit of a Frankenstein monster in any library vendor's arsenal. And it really has a bad rap. And there are things that you can do to make this system a lot more useful. So let's go ahead and look at those. What I am not going to do today is to give you a full demo of our acquisitions module. Okay, I don't need to do that. You know about some of these things. What I want to do though is talk to you about an efficient workflow that you would actually want to implement, a workflow that would make you think, oh, maybe acquisitions would work for us. Maybe it is worth the effort. And this is going to be applicable to TLC's OSA system, but it is actually, this workflow is applicable to other library systems. We are not the only ones doing this basic workflow, okay? So looking at this, so why do libraries avoid or abandon acquisitions modules? Well, you saw some of the quotes there. Essentially, they think it's more trouble than it's worth. They think there's too much staff time involved in it. They look at the result, the payback from it, and it just doesn't equal the amount of effort involved in setting it up. What we can do is we're going to look at setting up fund and collection codes using the full capabilities of your online order interface. Most of you now are probably ordering online with your vendors, and you may have noticed that you can set fund accounts and collection codes in there. What we're going to do then is look at recreating your online order in acquisitions, and we're going to do that effortlessly, basically with a single click. And then we're going to look at auto overlay of full Marc records from a hierarchy of quality Marc sources. What we're doing there is we're setting up your Marc sources in the order in which you would want to search them. And then it's automatically going to pull from the highest rated of your databases. We're trying to build quality into the process rather than relying on a quality record coming from an extraordinary effort by your staff. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at briefly is also ingesting electronic invoices. After all, if I'm using an acquisition system and I've got electronic ordering, why not make things easy and also ingest my electronic invoices as well? Then I don't have to recreate those either. So what you really want from an acquisition system then is no duplication of effort. The tagline, you don't have time to waste time. You want it to be faster, easier, better than a spreadsheet, or what's the point? You're probably using spreadsheets at the moment if you're not using a vendor, if you're not using an acquisitions module. So if it's not going to beat that, there's no point. The other point here is that with OSA, paraprofessional staff can use this to perform copy cataloging. Using well-matched quality records. In other words, you don't have to have a professional cataloger to get materials from the point of order into the catalog. And the last thing here, and this is something that hopefully will prevent some of your cataloging staff hyperventilating, they can absolutely be involved in the process where it's appropriate and where they can add the most value. We'll look at that in a bit more detail later. Okay, So what's the goal of all this then? The goal with a modern acquisition system is simple workflows with no duplication of effort. It's the duplication of effort, which is one of the things that puts people off actually using acquisitions. So what we're going to see there is we're going to start with online ordering. That's going to lead us into fund accounting, which is one of the key reasons we have an acquisitions module after all. From that, we would go into copy cataloging. That then is creating a record in the OPAC so patrons can place a hold on it. And so we can then overlay it with a full mark record. The other piece of that is receiving and invoicing. It may well be that you do your receiving and invoicing before you do your copy cataloging. So I put a double arrow there for that. And then the last part of this, of course, the whole point of this is patron fulfillment. Getting it into the OPAC, getting a full record in the system so a patron can go in and search, find the latest bestseller and place a hold on it or circuit, or someone who has requested a title to be purchased gets a notification from circulation saying, hey, that book you wanted us to buy, well, we did, it's available, come and get it. So what I have alluded to on this is that many of the online vendors, seeing the library system vendors stumble with acquisitions, have rushed in to fill the gap there by creating a sort of an OSA acquisitions module, acquisitions light. And they've done that within the actual online ordering interface for their systems. And so it's not just search, selection, and curation. Here's an example of iPage here, where, again, most of those vendors are offering those types of things. But it also offers things like fund accounting and collection information. You can absolutely add that information at the point of order when you're online with your online vendor. So let's look at that. Here's a typical iPage page there for ordering. There's one for Baker & Taylor Title Source 360. And here's one for BIBZ, which is Brodart system. And actually, if you look at this one here, you'll see a couple of things. First of all, you'll see that you can set up a collection code there. You can see also that you can set up fund accounts. And if you look all the way to the left there, just by the quantities, you can see you can set up branches as well. In other words, all of these systems have the ability to allow you to nominate fund accounts, collection codes, location codes at the point of order. So you're not just saying, hey, this is the title I want, this is the format, this is the quantity I want. It's also allowing you to say, perhaps with a grid or a template, hey, I want it to come from this fund account. I want it to go into these collection codes. I want it to go to these locations when I'm buying multiple copies. So all of those things there can be managed at the point of order. It doesn't have to be done later in cataloging. You attach those at the point of order. You will need to set those up with your preferred vendors. Now I'm showing you here on this page Title Source 360, and I'm showing you here iPage. Midwest Tape sets it up for you, so I wasn't able to show you a page for their grids. And as you saw on the previous page, actually you can set that up in Brodart right in the order there, at least in that particular example I showed you. So the whole point then is we can put that information in at the time of ordering online. So what is the process that makes this worthwhile? It's order import process. So let's take Ingram iPage as an example. I've got my order and I've placed it with Ingram. Okay. Now, one of the things I can get my vendors to do for me is automatically post my orders to an FTP site, a secure website. It's an electronic copy of my order in an MRC format, and those vendors can post it to a secure FTP site, a bit like a Dropbox in a sense. I think most of you will be familiar with that idea. And at that point, it's sitting there waiting to be picked up. Your acquisitions module, in this case OSA, is capable of going off to that vendor FTP site, actually going there automatically. You could set it up on a schedule to visit that on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Find the orders that have been posted to the website and automatically download them into OSA. Okay. So what's going on there? Well, what's happening is we've got the vendor FTP site. I've got that file, and it's loading it into a mapping utility. And here's an example of R1 for Ingram. And you'll see it's got distribution information, other information, and then some stuff at the bottom. At the top, of course, you've got some of the stuff you'd expect to see, like Marc subfield, Marc field. But you can also see other things there, like fund subfields, destination branch, location or collection code, as well as the things you'd expect to see, which would be the copies, the price, the publication date, the notes, the purchase order, things like that, ISBNs and such like. Okay. Then further down, you'll notice that I've actually highlighted that I've set this up to automatically retrieve lists from this vendor website. This is one workflow. There are others where you can manually go. There are ones where you could have the vendor email you your order, and you could load it from your PC, from your workstation into OSA that way. But really, if you can set it up, this is an automatic process and it loads it in. And as you can see underneath that red ellipse, you'll see that the automatic list retrieval is being sent to me, Jerry Davis. I'm a level 5 reviewer, and any duplicates are being sent to a separate list. And then there's the information underneath. Okay, all right, so let's look at this. What's going on then? So that loader then, taking all that information, and I want to say there, you'll notice that basically we're using the 945 field. I think all of the other vendors using acquisitions are using a 9XX field, not necessarily 945. Some of them are using other ones, but I think all of them are using a 9XX field for this. But anyway, there's the information there. It's being loaded, and it then loads directly into acquisitions. And what we see there then are lists waiting to be reviewed. And there you can see Ingram's list is there. It's in review. It's worth 96.94, and it's waiting for me to review that. Okay. Now, so let's at that point go over and look at OSA Live for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back, because the next step we're going to look at is the automatic overlay of the brief order record with a full Marc record. Okay, so let's go over from that. Here I am in OSA, and I'm actually at the list being reviewed by Jerry Davis. So there's the list that was automatically picked up from the Ingram website, from the FTP file, ingested into OSA. OSA presents it then as a list, which I can view. And there's my list. And you'll see that I've got the stuff I would expect to see there: title, author, publisher, vendor, the price, the quantity. But look at some of the other things, not just ISBN, but we can also put in there, if I go in and edit this individual one briefly, you can see at the bottom, I have also got things like my fund accounts, my location codes, and my collection codes. All of that information has been brought across from the online order that I created online with that vendor. There are other things I can add in there as well. For example, I think you can, in many of these cases, you can add notes as well. Okay, so going back to my list, there it is. At this point, all I have to do, going back to my list awaiting review there, is if I'm happy with that order, of course I am, but I would actually have a notification if any of the import process had thrown any errors up. But that is the order that was placed with Ingram. So all I really have to do, and this is the only work I have to do really with this, is I need to make sure that the acquisitions module is caught up with what I've actually done in the real world, which is I've already placed the order with Ingram. They've got it and they are working on that right now. So all I have to do is to order that. At this point, I can look at the order and I can be happy with that. It's an online order and I will complete it. Now, what I am not doing is retransmitting that order to Ingram. There's no need for me to. I've already ordered it. But what I have done here is I've gone in and I have updated OSA so it knows that I've ordered. Okay. At this point, I have a chance, if I wish, to change the PO number if I wanted on this, and look at other things. So at that point, I'm done. So I can finish that, and we will go back and jump into this. So at this point, I can go back to my lists. You'll see that the list I had for review is gone. I have other lists awaiting review, perhaps. Um, OSA has the ability for you as a user to have lists funneled to you from lower level employees who can create lists, but they don't have the ability to actually order. So I can also have lists sent to me for review. And here's a couple of lists that I've got here. Okay, I can then go to my lists and then I can see the orders that have been placed and I can view things from here. Notice that I can have things like notes. I can see what's been released and what's under construction. Okay, so there's some basic stuff there. At this point, I'm going to jump back into I'm not going to go through acquisitions and show you all the features there. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint and we'll carry on with the next step. Because what's happened now is, actually, there's a couple of things I can show you. The first one, I think, is I'm going to look at that configure Marc upload. So there's the Ingram one that we were working on. And again, there is the Marc upload configuration. And this is where I load my information for that. I can save that. I can go back to the vendor file. I could go and look at another one like Title Source 360, and I can see that. Okay. All right. The other thing I want to show you briefly, and we're really coming into this next, so I want to show you this briefly. And this is preferred Marc record sources. The next thing we're going to be doing is we are going to be uploading full Marc records to cover the brief records that we've got, and we'll be doing that there. Okay. The other part of this, by the way, and I'll just touch on this briefly now while we're live and before I go back to the PowerPoint, is the pack synchronization to false. One of the things that you have the option for in acquisitions is deciding when do your patrons get to see what you've ordered. And these are my timing options here. I can set this up so it does not schedule items to display in the pack. I may decide that my catalogers want to do that, that they want to be able to view the records that have been downloaded and make changes to them and quality QC those before they display. I may decide to do it as soon as it's been released, or perhaps when it's been approved or when it's been received. Maybe my patrons are a little bit insistent and keep on nagging me for, is it there yet? Is it there yet? In which case, it would be nice if I had the book nearly on the shelf before they knew it was there. But many people want to let their patrons know, hey, it's on order. You can place a hold on it at this point, even as it's on order. Okay, so that's that. Let's go on and look at the PowerPoint again. So that's where we left off. Let's look at the next piece of this. The next piece being automated Marc record overlay. Now, we start with OSA. There's a typical order that we've placed there, and I've got all my information there. And what's going to happen? It's going to go to our Marc source profile configurator that I showed you just now. And this is where I set up a hierarchy of the databases that I want to search. I can have multiple profiles. I can have a profile for nonfiction. I could have a different profile if it's audiovisual. I can have a profile for foreign languages, particular foreign languages. I could have another one for fiction. On the left of this box here, you can see the available sources, and on the right are the sources that I've selected and the hierarchy in which I wish the system to search. Pardon me. You'll notice there that basically we're looking at TLC's LC Marc, but you'll see the fourth option there is OCLC. In the buttons down below, I can also add additional sources. That can be any Z3950 source that you wish. It could be the major metropolitan library in your state, or the one you used to work at many years ago, and you know the people there do a great job, and you pull records from that source. Whatever source it is, you put those in there in that list. And the idea is you're basically doing what a cataloger does, which is, okay, given this material, where do I want to look first? What's my preferred source? And this is going to do it. The next step, of course, is having taken that brief order record, it then overlays it, and then it displays it in the pack. or it loads it into the catalog. So let's look at this at the micro level. There's the macro level, and the micro level is this. Here we have our grubby little, if dare I say it, grubby little vendor record that I've got when I ordered the title. It's nasty, short, and brutish, and it's not something that I would ideally want to have in the catalog. So what would I do? I'd go out to my preferred sources, I'd search through them in order. It would stop when it gets to a result of my preferred ones, and at that point, it would then load that into the catalog. Those two records are the same record. The first one is from a vendor. The second one is the record that's come out of LC. When I say that, LC Marc, that's our own It's Marc database. It could well have come out of OCLC or any number of other sources. Obviously, the point here is you're starting off with something grubby and you're ending up with a very nice record that you would be proud of. Okay, the point is, of course, that that's loaded into the catalog, but there's nothing stopping your catalogers going in and saying, you know what, there are additional local subjects that I add into our system that help us and help our patrons find particular types of materials. There are additional things here that I want to add to it. I want to check a certain number of things here. I don't trust this source for duplicates, perhaps, or something like that. Or it's a local author, and I know I can add some more information to it. Okay, the last part here that we're going to talk about, having ingested a full order record with all the information from the vendor into OSA. And then OSA has taken that and created my fund accounts, my collection codes. It's created with an overlay for Marc, a full Marc record, and put it into the catalog. It's done all that in an automated way that allows 90% of my materials to go through this process automatically, thereby freeing up any professional staff I have to pull out the exceptions and add the most value where they can make a difference. Rather than having them touch every single record, you've got the option here of saying, hey, I can just watch these go by in forms of a report, for example, and I'll just pull out the ones where I'm either suspicious or I know I can make a difference. And there you go. Okay, so the last part then is automated electronic invoice import. And essentially what I have here, just as I had a file which was showing me orders that had been placed and are waiting for my review, here I am picking up electronic invoices from that vendor website, waiting for my review. And at that point, I can pull them in, look at them. It was created by Electronic Invoice. You can see that there on the right-hand side. And at that point, I can add I can then match against my line items. Again, the system will have imported the individual line items there, and it will match those individual items against my orders. Okay. I'm not going to go in and show you screens of how it touches exceptions, but it is doing exception reports. It is highlighting wherever there's an error between what I ordered and what I'm being invoiced. Okay, but this is what I wanted to show you. Okay, so other considerations. This is not the only workflow. There are lots of alternatives. In fact, I know that most of you are using everything but what I've shown you today. I checked around among our customers. Few, if any, of them are actually using this workflow. And yet it is such a powerful workflow, and it is being picked up by a large number of libraries out there as they get to grips with online ordering, and as they really find they want the benefits of acquisitions. But more and more, the staff they have are most valuable dealing with patrons rather than being in the back room. OSA can order non-bibliographic materials, supplies in the library. Dare I suggest it, N95 masks for patrons and staff. You can absolutely create orders for vendors without an online order. I've touched on Midwest Tape, Brodart, Baker & Taylor, and Ingram, but there are many others out there that also offer this. There are also some notable exceptions out there, like Amazon, that don't offer this. But whoever vendors you're using, you can, of course, create online orders in the traditional way. And again, I want to repeat this. Catalogers absolutely can monitor and change any selected Marc record. But if you can set up a workflow where 90% of the day-to-day donkey work can be done as part of a process with quality control built in, with hierarchical reference to quality bib records, then if you can take your expert, your professional staff off the grindstone and allow them time to add value where it's most needed. Maybe it's not in any of these anyway. Maybe it's another collection of materials, local items and titles that you've never got round to ordering. Or never got round to cataloging. There's a lot of other things that you can do with your cataloging staff, if indeed you still have cataloging staff. So those are some of the other considerations. In summary, it makes the best use of your vendor website. After all, you don't want to manually duplicate what you've already done with your vendors. It allows you to build copy cataloging workflow. I think I've made my point with that. But TLC did start as a cataloging company, so we know what we're doing. You get the benefits of fund accounting with almost no additional effort. If you can put in, and at some point in the cataloging process, the copy cataloging process, you're going to have to put in your collection codes, your location codes, and maybe at least on a spreadsheet, you're going to have to note a fund account that this is coming from. Then if you can do that at the point of order, then you're going to basically get all the other benefits of an acquisitions module, from fund accounting to receiving and invoicing, pretty much for free. It absolutely makes sense for traditional outlook. It can absolutely manage traditional acquisitions workflows. You don't have to do it this way, but this is a very powerful and streamlined way of making acquisitions worthwhile again. Okay, it saves you time and money compared to spreadsheets, and it is intuitive. You will want to use it. So what's the result of all this? Well, the result is we end up with a workflow that starts off at my preferred vendor with an online ordering experience. It seamlessly transitions into fund accounting, where my online order is ingested into my acquisitions module. My funds are encumbered. I can look at how I'm doing against my spending. How much have I got left for the rest of the year? Do I have to go out and splurge before I use it or lose it? I can go on and go ahead and do my copy cataloging or my receiving and invoicing, whichever I do first. I don't have to do receiving and invoicing together as well. I can make them separate. But many of you I know don't have auditors that are insisting that receiving and invoicing are done by separate people. There just isn't enough people for that in your library. And then the last part of all this is patron fulfillment. Again, it means that with this process, you can get titles on the shelf. They're fully cataloged. Patrons can place holds on them. Patrons who've asked for a book to be purchased will get a notification that it's arrived on the shelf. Patrons can place holds on materials as they've been ordered. So have you got the latest Hilary Mantel novel available? No, but it's on order, and you can be the 25th person in line to place a hold on it at your branch. It's that easy. Okay, well, thank you very much. The next step here is come back to the same bat channel at the same time next week for another webinar, and that will be on Carl Connect Circulation on the Go. So thank you very much. This is Jerry Davis from TLC. And at this point, I will pass over. Thank you.